History remembers the names written by the victors. But what about the brilliant minds who changed the world yet vanished from every textbook? The inventors, warriors, and pioneers whose skin color became their erasure. Today, we expose the truth they never wanted you to know. Prepare to question everything you were taught. Before we unveil these hidden stories, hit that like button if you're ready for history they didn't teach in school. Subscribe and ring the bell because this changes everything. Now, let's begin. Walk into any museum, flip through any history textbook. Notice something? The faces staring back are remarkably similar. The narrative remains consistent. The heroes wear the same shade. But history, real history, is far more colorful than they ever told you. This isn't a story about forgotten footnotes or minor contributors. This is about titans who shaped civilization itself, then disappeared from the record as if they never existed. The pattern is undeniable. Achievements stolen, names erased, legacies buried under layers of convenient amnesia. Some call it oversight. The evidence suggests something far more deliberate. These weren't people who lived quiet lives in the margins. They were revolutionaries, geniuses, warriors who stood at the very center of history's most pivotal moments. And then, somehow, they vanished. The question isn't whether this happened. The question is why. And more importantly, who were they? The year is 1914. Europe descends into the chaos of the Great War. In the skies above France, a young pilot executes a perfect barrel roll, his plane dancing through clouds of artillery smoke. His name is Eugene Bullard, and he's about to become the world's first black fighter pilot. But you won't find his face in most aviation museums. You won't see his story in mainstream war documentaries. Eugene's journey began in Georgia, where he fled racism so violent it drove him across an ocean. In France, he found something America never offered: respect. He joined the French Foreign Legion, fighting in the trenches at Verdun, one of history's bloodiest battles. When injury pulled him from ground combat, he looked up. The sky became his new battlefield. Against impossible odds, he earned his pilot's wings. In the cockpit of an SAPD fighter, he flew combat missions, engaging German aircraft in deadly aerial duels. His fellow French pilots celebrated him. The American military, which would eventually enter the war, refused to let black men fly. When American forces arrived, they transferred Eugene out of aviation entirely. His contributions? Erased from American military records. Decades later, when historians compiled lists of aviation pioneers, Eugene's name appeared nowhere. The first black combat pilot had been written out of the sky. But here's the karma they never anticipated. France never forgot. They awarded him the Croix de Guerre, the Légion d'honneur. His story survived in French archives while American textbooks pretended he never existed. Eugene Bullard didn't just break barriers, he shattered them at 10,000 feet, then watched his own country rebuild those barriers around his memory. The betrayal was complete, but not permanent. Truth, like Eugene himself, eventually learned to fly. Now, travel back further to the 1800s. The world before electric light was a world of darkness, limited by the sun's schedule and the weak flicker of gas lamps. Then came the revolution. Everyone knows Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, right? The story is simpler than that and far more complicated. Enter Lewis Latimer, a brilliant mind born to formerly enslaved parents. While Edison created an early bulb, it had a fatal flaw. It burned out within days, sometimes hours, impractical, expensive, nearly useless. Lewis saw the problem and solved it. He invented the carbon filament, the crucial innovation that made electric light last months instead of hours. He didn't just improve Edison's design, he made electric light possible for the entire world. Lewis didn't stop there. He drafted the patent drawings for Alexander Graham Bell's telephone. He supervised the installation of electric lights in New York, Philadelphia, Montreal, London. He wrote the definitive book on electric lighting. Major corporations competed for his expertise. Yet, when history classes teach the story of electric light, they speak one name: Edison. The injustice cuts deeper when you realize Lewis worked directly for Edison's company. His innovations made Edison wealthy beyond measure, made Edison's name synonymous with genius. Meanwhile, Lewis's contributions were quietly filed away, his name reduced to a footnote that most textbooks didn't bother including. Every single night, billions of people across the globe flick a switch. Light floods their rooms, powered by technology that wouldn't exist without Lewis Latimer's carbon filament. They live in a world he illuminated, never knowing his name. That's not forgetfulness, that's erasure. But karma has a long memory. Today, slowly, deliberately, historians are correcting the record. Lewis Latimer's name appears in new textbooks, new documentaries. Schools bear his name. The light he created is finally shining on his legacy. The darkness they tried to keep him in is receding, one revelation at a time. The year is 1930. America's streets are chaos. Cars, pedestrians, horses, all competing for the same space with no organization, no system. Accidents kill thousands annually. Cities desperately need a solution. In a workshop in Cleveland, a Black inventor named Garrett Morgan puts the finishing touches on a device that will save millions of lives. The three-position traffic signal: red, yellow, green. So simple now we don't even think about it. Revolutionary then. Garrett didn't just invent it, he invented the concept of automated traffic control itself. Before his signal, traffic cops manually directed every intersection, a system that couldn't scale with growing cities. Garrett's invention brought order to chaos, safety to danger. But this wasn't his first life-saving invention. Years earlier, he created the safety hood, an early gas mask. In 1916, when an explosion trapped workers in a tunnel beneath Lake Erie, Garrett personally wore his invention and descended into the poisonous smoke, saving lives with his own hands. His heroism made headlines. Then, people discovered the hero was Black. Suddenly, orders for his safety hood evaporated from southern cities. Fire departments that desperately needed the equipment refused to buy it because of the inventor's skin color. Garrett watched people die in fires because racism mattered more than survival. He watched his traffic signal get installed in every major city while his name disappeared from the story. Other inventors received credit. Patent offices and history books performed a magic trick. They made Garrett Morgan vanish while his inventions remained visible everywhere. Every time you stop at a red light, you're obeying Garrett's innovation. Every firefighter who wears a gas mask owes him a debt. Yet for decades, this debt went unacknowledged, unpaid, as if the inventions materialized from thin air, created by nobody, belonging to everybody except the man who actually made them. The karma? Like so many others, Garrett's story refused to stay buried. His descendants fought to restore his legacy. Museums began displaying his inventions with his name attached. The traffic signal he created became his monument, standing on every corner, impossible to ignore. They tried to erase him, but they couldn't erase what he built. And what he built was everywhere. Move now to the world of medicine, where life and death balance on the edge of a scalpel. The year is 1944. A young Black man named Vivian Thomas stands in an operating room at Johns Hopkins Hospital, one of America's most prestigious medical institutions. He's not a doctor. He doesn't have a medical degree. He barely finished high school after the Great Depression destroyed his college savings. Yet, he's about to revolutionize heart surgery and save thousands of children's lives. Vivian worked as a laboratory assistant to Dr. Alfred Blalock. But assistant doesn't capture what he truly was. He was a pioneer, a genius, a researcher who developed the techniques for the first heart surgery on a blue baby, an infant dying from a heart defect. In the laboratory, working with dogs, Vivian perfected a surgical procedure that seemed impossible. He mapped every step, every incision, every suture. When the first human surgery took place, Vivian stood behind Dr. Blalock, guiding him through the procedure Vivian himself had developed. The surgery succeeded. The baby lived. Blue babies around the world suddenly had hope. Dr. Blaylock became famous. His name appeared in medical journals, textbooks, award ceremonies. Vivian's name appeared nowhere. He couldn't eat in the hospital cafeteria because it was segregated. He couldn't use the same bathroom as the doctors whose techniques he pioneered. He was paid as a janitor while performing the work of a master surgeon. For decades, medical students learned the Blaylock technique without knowing that Vivian Thomas's hands had created it. Imagine the emotional weight. Every day, walking into a hospital where your genius saves lives, where surgeons use your methods, where children breathe because you existed and nobody knows your name, where the institution that built its reputation on your work won't even acknowledge you as human enough to eat with your colleagues. But here's where the story shifts, where karma begins its slow, inevitable work. Dr. Blaylock, to his credit, eventually advocated for Vivian. Medical students who trained under Vivian's guidance never forgot him. They watched him work, recognized his brilliance, and refused to let history bury him. In 1976, Johns Hopkins finally awarded Vivian an honorary doctorate. They unveiled his portrait, hanging it in the same halls where he'd once been forbidden to enter through the front door. Vivian Thomas lived to see his vindication. He lived to watch the medical establishment admit what he'd always known. He was never an assistant. He was a pioneer. The blue babies who grew into adults, the surgical techniques still used today, the thousands of lives extended because of his work, they all testified to a truth that couldn't be erased forever. These stories share a pattern: genius emerging from unexpected places, contributions that change the world, recognition deliberately withheld. And yet, despite every effort to bury these names, they resurface. Truth has a way of refusing to stay dead. This isn't ancient history. This pattern continues. Even now, textbooks minimize, omit, overlook. Museums curate carefully, deciding whose face deserves space on the wall. Documentaries choose their heroes with remarkable consistency. The architecture of erasure remains standing even as more people recognize it for what it is.
But something's shifting. A generation armed with information, with access to archives, with the ability to share suppressed stories across the world in seconds, is rewriting the narrative. Every revelation, every restored name, every corrected textbook represents a small victory against deliberate forgetting. Consider what we lose when we lose these stories. We lose inspiration. We lose role models. We lose the full, complex, beautiful truth of human achievement. Young minds, looking for heroes who look like them, find empty pages where giants should stand. That absence sends a message, silent but clear: you don't belong in the story of greatness. But those young minds are finding these heroes anyway, discovering that the absence wasn't truth, it was theft. They're learning that their ancestors weren't absent from history's great moments, they were erased from the telling of those moments. There's a difference, and it matters. The karma in all of this is poetic. They tried to bury these heroes and instead created a mystery that demands solving. They tried to write them out and instead made their eventual discovery more powerful, more emotionally resonant. Every restored name feels like justice delayed but not denied. Every corrected textbook represents a battle won in a longer war. Eugene Bullard's plane, Lewis Latimer's light, Garrett Morgan's traffic signal, Vivian Thomas's surgical technique, they all remained visible even when their creators were hidden. The inventions testified when the inventors couldn't. The achievements echoed when the achievers were silenced. And eventually, inevitably, people began asking the right questions. Who actually made this? Whose hands created this miracle? The answers, when they came, shattered comfortable narratives. History wasn't what they taught. The heroes weren't who they claimed. The story was bigger, more diverse, more complex, and infinitely more interesting than the sanitized version that fit neatly into segregated expectations. These 6 heroes represent dozens more, hundreds more, thousands more, names still buried in archives waiting for someone to dust them off and bring them into light. Warriors who saved nations, scientists who cured diseases, artists who defined movements, explorers who charted unknown territories, teachers who educated generations, all missing from the official record as if they never existed. But they did exist. They lived, they struggled, they achieved, they changed the world. And the world, slowly, grudgingly, is beginning to remember. Museums are adding exhibits, textbooks are adding chapters, documentaries are telling stories that were suppressed for generations. This isn't about replacing one set of heroes with another. This is about completing the picture, about telling the whole truth instead of a carefully edited version. This is about young people of every background learning that genius, courage, and innovation don't belong to any single group. They belong to humanity in all its beautiful diversity. The heroes missing from every history book aren't missing anymore. We found them. We're learning their names. We're telling their stories. And every time we do, we strike a blow against the forces that tried to erase them. These heroes fought to be heard. Now it's your turn to amplify their voices. Like this video if their stories moved you. Share it with someone who needs to know this history. Subscribe because we're uncovering more hidden truths every week. Drop a comment telling us which hero shocked you most. Together, we're rewriting the narrative they tried to bury. The truth is finally coming to light, and it's brighter than they ever wanted you to see. See you in the next one.